But when they were listing off like, oh, name the 5 famous movie stars that got their start in horror, and they list off like Jamie Lee Curtis, blah blah blah. They didn't list Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
that would have been great.
Right.
That would have been so perfect. They didn't. I assume they left him out for that reason, but I thought that would have been funny.
but it felt like this movie could have totally done that too.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
as
fair.
far as, yeah, they could have done
Or
that.
or if they just bagged on him for 10 minutes, like, yeah, but you see this movie he was in? Like,
If they did that and didn't tell him they were going to do that.
Welcome in, everybody. Today we are reviewing the 3rd film in a trilogy, one that I've been looking forward to watching. I've enjoyed the first 2 movies in this trilogy. We'll get into this one. We watched MaXXXine, part of the X trilogy. Before we talk about it, though, let me introduce my 2 co-hosts. First, Dave.
Hello, Rob.
Jesse.
what is going on, gentlemen?
And now that we have the formalities out of the way, Dave, why don't you hit us with that sexy synopsis?
Very well. MaXXXine 2024, directed by Ty West. In the 1980s Hollywood, adult film star and aspiring actress MaXXXine Minx finally gets her big break. However, as a mysterious killer stalks the starlet of Los Angeles, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. So, as Rob said, we get the conclusion for this X trilogy by Ty West, which ended up being a lot. The trilogy as a whole is a really solid trilogy, which is, I wasn't super familiar with a lot of Ty West things. I know we looked into a bunch of movies that he's done when we reviewed X, and I don't think there was anything that really stood out that blew me away personally. So to get this trilogy, a trilogy of this caliber, I thought was pretty I guess surprising, for lack of a better term. But this movie, out of the 3, was definitely, in my opinion, the most cartoonish, and it's probably my least favorite, but not by much. I didn't dislike it. I liked it. I had a couple of issues with it, but overall, I thought it was a pretty solid movie. It had a pretty star-studded cast, which was fun. It felt like it was kind of intentionally cartoonish. You had a lot of very animated characters. Kevin Bacon's character was super animated. Bobby Cannavale's character was pretty animated, and it was real, like, flashy, colorful, kind of had like a Dario Argento feel to it from the 70s and 80s there. And overall, I felt like it had a different vibe than the other 2 movies, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I thought it was a strong finish for the trilogy.
Well, I feel like each movie had a different vibe from the other ones. So we've talked about the Evil Dead, right? Where ad nauseum we've talked about the Evil Dead, but how each movie in that original trilogy was sort of a different genre. And I don't think that this trilogy, each movie is a different genre per se, but I think it's almost like a different version of slasher movies as you go through. Like, I think that you sort of have the typical slasher with X.
This wasn't a slasher.
It's just what I was going to say. This is this reminds me more of like Seven, Final Girls, that era of movies that we got, sort of like we're talking
Murder
about.
mystery.
Yeah, murder mystery, like we did with sort of like Longlegs in that sense, right? A little bit more violent in this one particularly, but I think that you get like just a slightly different version of each of these movies as you go through. And I'm kind of with you on this too, where this is my least favorite of the trilogy, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it had moments where it wasn't fantastic. Some of the acting actually wasn't that good. Most of it was good, and like Dave said, and you guys are saying, that there was a star-studded cast and the stars did their job, but there was some acting in the movie that I was like, this, why didn't they reshoot this scene? Like, why did they let them fly? A lot of it was pretty bad. Before we go too much into these scenes, it is a new movie, and as we do on every single horror movie review, this one especially, we're going to spoil it. So if you haven't watched it yet, you don't want to get it spoiled. Again, every horror movie that we do, we spoil. But so we're going to spoil this one, but this one is brand new. So make sure you go check out the movie first if you don't want it spoiled here. But Obviously, Mia Goth did another phenomenal job. She's like such a strong actress. She's so good in this entire trilogy. Had no issues with her whatsoever. We had strong performances from all the stars. Yeah, it was a little cartoony, a little goofy at times, which I was fine with because that was kind of the theme throughout the entire movie. I obviously love Kevin Bacon. He's been great in all of the horror movies that he's done, as far as I'm concerned. And he played this character well. Maybe it was the accent, but there was something that felt it was a little over the top with his character. But I mean, I think that's kind of how it was supposed to be. I mean, it was
he hit like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit villain. That's what it's just like the cat that was and it wasn't like he was doing a poor job acting. Maybe you could make the claim that it was overacting, but I don't think it was. I think that was the style of movie that they wanted. It felt like a throwback to like an old, like I said, Dario Argento, like the Italian kind of.
Such a great comparison, because that is specifically with his character too, right? Like, I mean, with other stuff, but his character just that over the top, which I actually liked it.
It was fun. I had a good time watching this movie. It won't get a bad score for me. I am with you guys that I think of the 3 movies, this one was a little bit weaker than the rest. I didn't love the villain with his leather gloves. I found that to be really corny, and how he's just like gripping things over the top. I mean, leather gloves are fine. It's just, I don't know, like throughout the movie, I was like, oh, it just doesn't feel scary. I don't know. It probably wasn't meant to be scary, but it just, I don't know. Even if he doesn't have gloves on in those scenes, I get it. You wear gloves to not leave fingerprints behind, but at the same time, it just, I don't know. It felt weird. It just felt like they missed the mark on that a little bit. And I could have done with more. How do you even say his name? Is it Juan Carlo? I call him Gus from Breaking Bad.
It might be Giancarlo.
Oh,
yeah.
Juan Carlo Esposito.
It is Juan Carlo. Yeah. So he's obviously phenomenal in everything. This one, he was finally not the same character he is in every other movie, which, by the way,
until he was
kind of, yeah, true. I mean, but at the same time, it's like, this isn't a knock on him. I love him in absolutely everything he's been in.
Yeah.
But this was another one where I think we could have used a little more of him in this movie. I understand he was just the manager or whatever. But I mean, you have someone that strong in this movie, but you could make the case for every one of the stars that are in this movie that you could have used more of them besides maybe Mia Goth, because obviously she was in every single scene. She was a star, and she crushed this role again. Absolutely crushed it.
She did. And there were some good performances. I thought the director, the movie director, not Ty West, but the woman who played the director in the movie, was annoying. I thought her character was annoying. I don't know if she did a bad job acting. It just felt so just fake. I don't know. She felt like a phony character. I didn't buy it.
Right.
But wouldn't that lend credence to what Hollywood is being portrayed as?
Yeah, maybe. So again, I don't know if it's a knock. I just remember that it sticks out in my head that it annoyed me. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing about it. But because if that was the intended delivery, then I guess they nailed it. But for whatever reason,
because she has like that pretentious, like character, but I think she did a good job of coming off like that, but still showing like a level of caring. Mm-hmm. I know that might sound weird. So that's why I thought her character was fine. It's like, she's like this pretentious, stuck up, what you normally think of with Hollywood directors or like Hollywood producers.
She takes herself too seriously.
Right. But at the same time, she is actually trying to help people that she like takes under her wing almost. Right. And she just doesn't want people to screw that up. So I didn't mind the character. I thought that she played it, the duality of it, pretty well. But I understand not liking the character.
Time is my most valuable asset. Waste it again, and you're finished. Shut up. I hate it.
There were a few corny one-liners in this movie, but overall, like I said, it was fun. And it wasn't like the movie took a turn. It kind of started off with this weird LA late night vibe with the whole red light district and the industry that she's in, and all the cocaine usage and all this kind of stuff. And it had wacky characters throughout the entire movie. So I'm fine with movies like this when they're consistent like this, where everyone's pretty wacky.
And this one was consistent for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then you had your other characters that really weren't wacky, and they worked. Like you had her best friend who worked at like the Blockbuster basically. And I thought he crushed it in this movie. Mm-hmm. The girl who played the pagan who ended up dying in the movie, I thought she was perfect for her role, and she did a great job. I think they did just a little bit.
Talk about Halsey's character.
I believe so. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the I loved all like the paying homage to Bates Motel and it ends at the Hollywood sign. I mean, everything about this movie, like it was just kind of a cool LA movie, and you just kind of you appreciate all of the things that happened in this movie. I thought the chase scene with Kevin Bacon and her running through this, I had problems with it because I'm like, why haven't they crossed paths with anyone? Middle of the day at an active Hollywood studio. It's not like no one's there. She just got off her set. Like there should be people all over the place. And every other scene that they showed that place, there were people everywhere. But they're able to run all through this thing. But I was fine with it at the end because they did end up getting caught. The whole thing was thwarted, this chase scene, by a security guard. So they did. I was like, all right, thank God somebody caught this potential murder in action happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't see it to a point where he just thought that Kevin Bacon's character was a trespasser. He played John Labatt in the movie.
I thought there was a blown up. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off with a different point. I thought there was a bit of a blown opportunity in this movie, which it annoyed me when it happened because I was like, oh, he was right there for you. And I think they left it out intentionally. But when they were listing off like, oh, name the 5 famous movie stars that got their start in horror, and they list off like Jamie Lee Curtis, blah, blah, blah. They didn't list Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
that would have been great. Right. That would have been so perfect. They didn't. I assume they left him out for that reason, but I thought that would have been funny.
But it felt like this movie could have totally done that too.
Yeah. They could have done that.
Or if they just bagged on him for 10 minutes, like, yeah, but you see this movie he was in? Like,
if they did that and didn't tell him they were going to do that, that would have been amazing.
They should do that with an actor one day, where they have this actor film these serious scenes, and every other scene is just everyone else shitting on that actor in real life.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
That would be really good.
I love the scene where they're putting the goo on her face. I don't know what it's called.
That's a great scene.
Mask.
Yeah.
Starts being horrified. She's getting these flashbacks. I thought they did just enough flashbacks to the previous movie. I think they overdid it a tiny bit. Like, I don't think they needed as many flashbacks to her interactions with I think it was the first movie, right?
Yeah.
Where you had those flashback scenes.
Yeah.
Like, we get it. Like, we're here because we've seen the trilogy. It just felt like they mixed in a little bit too much of it. I mean, not nearly as much as some other movies that we reviewed, where the first 35 minutes of the movie is the completely previous movie. But this one, I thought after it did it like the 4th or 5th time, I was like, come on, like we've seen the movie. Let's focus on this movie, please. So that was fine. I loved the creepy scene where she's running up to she first sees the Bates Motel, the house behind it anyways. And she sees the old lady in the window, and she's just kind of like lost while the director is just talking to her or whatever.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of it. Like, there wasn't too much of that that haunting of the old lady, if you will. So
there were a couple of
really creepy.
There were a couple of things in this movie that it just felt like they forced it in. It was like, what the hell was that? All of the sudden this, and then they never addressed it again. For instance, when Kevin Bacon's character gets killed off, spoiler alert, all of a sudden her lawyer is now a gangster, and now they're murderers. And then we move away from that, and nothing else ever comes of it. It was just the most random. It was like, oh, we're gangsters now? Is it where and then
maybe.
And then they left it alone. I was like, what the hell? All right.
That was a real mafia hit there. It's like, hang on a second. Yeah, that did seem, because then it's like, okay, if this is the rest of the movie, if they have their shit together where they're going to coordinate a hit with a junkyard that seems to be okay with this, and it was making a big mess, that all the blood's leaking out of the bottom of the car. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of seemed tossed it like, okay, you have connections like this now? Like, okay.
No, don't. It was a cool scene. Like, I liked the scene. It was just like, well, that was weird. Wasn't expecting to go there.
Can I tell you why I love that scene? Because as it's happening, right, my mind is they're trying to scare him to give up the name of his employer. So I'm like, because this is what we do with movies. We just try to predict what's going to happen next. So I'm like, okay, they're going to start crushing the car. They're going to shut off the compactor. They're going to try to get the name. They're going to turn it on one more time. Then he's going to finally squeal, and then they're going to crush him, right? After he says who it is or something, or gives them some sort of tip. Nope, that thing
Nope.
just does
Yep.
not get shut off. That thing just, and I was actually shocked me, even though I thought the outcome might be him getting, squished. I just was like, there's got to be a reason behind this, and no, they just went with the full crushing without
Give him the big squish.
didn't even ask for a question, just didn't even care. Just like, we'll figure this shit out on our own.
Yeah, no,
Whatever.
it was a cool scene and it was a unique kill, and I liked it as a scene, but I was like, well, here we are. That's weird, as I said earlier. But yeah, that was a weird one for me.
Yeah, hell of a way to go, Kevin Bacon. We commend you and your act of cowardice as you got crushed by the car thing, which fair enough.
I thought he took it like a man. He sat there and said his prayers and got crushed. He
Mhm.
did scream a bit.
He begged, I don't want to die like this.
No, they definitely painted him like a coward because he was like, I'm an atheist earlier in the movie, and then all of a sudden at the end he's saying the Lord's Prayer and
Yeah.
Hail Mary there.
If we go back to the first act of violence in this movie, that was a brutal scene where guy comes up, tries to kill her, and she gives him the big stomp. That was very graphic.
Oh.
That was very graphic, yeah. Yep.
It was graphic, but I think it was a great setup to show who MaXXXine is as a character.
Yeah.
At this
Also,
point, right?
you get. Sorry, I was going to say you get this X factor throughout this entire movie of she's just carrying a handgun around, and I like it. It's a power move. It's like that scene. You're like, oh, this guy's gonna like. How's she gonna get out of this? She just turns around, puts a gun in his face, and he immediately is like, "Oh shit! I brought a knife to a gunfight." Like it was such a great scene. Yeah,
it was a good scene. It was another scene that's like here it is. It was like, oh, okay, never really addressed again, and it was just it almost felt like a weird attempt at character development for a character that was pretty well developed from the first movie, and it was just, I don't know. It was another one of those scenes that it just felt like it was just shoved in there and kind of didn't fit with the rest of the movie. Cause it was like, was that the killer that was going around? Which I think the killer was loosely based on Richie Ramirez, right? The Night Stalker.
Kind of. I think,
because they referenced it. I even think they showed a crime scene photo later on of Richie Ramirez being arrested.
I think,
I got that.
Yeah. So I think they attributed his crimes to her dad. So
which is this is one of my main.
But hang on, no, because I think
the movie
they might have separated it at the end, because I think they had just said, and we ended up catching a prolific serial killer who ended up being your father. But did they end up saying that he was the Night Stalker?
I don't know. I feel like they didn't tie that
because they showed them arrested. They showed footage of them arresting the Night Stalker. So you saw the back of his head, clearly a different person.
So what they did was they started by showing the Night Stalker stuff from the beginning of the movie. And then this event starts happening. And because of the satanic symbols on the head, some of the other cops were trying to, and the media was trying to attribute the deaths from her father to Richard Ramirez, which is, there's even a scene where the cops are talking to each other where they find the two girls at the pond and they're like, the Night Stalker, and they go, do you think that, or are you hoping that, right, is what one of the cops says to the other. And then at the end they do show Richard Ramirez getting caught, and to your point, Jesse, they're like, they've caught the Night Stalker, but first let's go talk to MaXXXine, who captured a serial killer of her own, and it ended up being her own father. So they did separate it.
Yeah, I had figured that they did, and it was kind of weird the way they tied in the end of it. It almost makes it. Yeah, I guess I'm fine with it being in the movie, because it did seem to conflate things a little bit, because everyone's scared of the Night Stalker. Meanwhile, there's another serial killer going around. That's fine. So we understand now.
It felt a little convoluted. I thank you for the clarification on that, because that helps, because I wouldn't want to take points off for me being wrong about something. But it's still, even with that, it just seems a little convoluted for a, was it hour 40 runtime?
I thought it was fine. I think if you watch it again, not that you should have to watch it twice, but I'm just saying, I think if you watch it again, you'd be like, because I think it was quick enough that, like, if you just missed a little something, I understand that point. But I do think they separated it enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Going back, this is not a movie that I wouldn't watch again.
This is so rewatchable.
Yeah, it was definitely was.
This whole series is very rewatchable.
Absolutely.
So I actually, something that I like about this movie is I think this actually makes the first movie better, because I think they set up I think they did a good job. I think Ty West had a vision. I know they shot the first two movies back to back, but I think he had a vision for a trilogy the whole time on this movie. And I think the way that he set up the father in the first movie coming back just makes that movie so much better. Remember, you had all the shots of him on the TV throughout the original movie, like doing the sermon.
Yep.
Right. So I think that just makes it even. I think this makes the first movie a little bit stronger. Like, I'm not saying it like absolutely raises the score a ton, which it was already a high score, but I'm just saying it's one of the rare movies that instead of hurting a previous entry, actually elevates it a little bit.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, almost predictable, right? With if you put into context the references in the first movie and then the very opening scene of this movie almost is like a telegraph of how it's going to end, because why else would it be there? So it's, I don't know if I would say it's points off or points for one way or the other. It's fine. I liked it. It kind of what I will say about this whole trilogy is it's a really tight trilogy. It's good. Every movie hits. It's a strong trilogy, and I think it's stronger than most horror trilogies because it was originally intended to be a trilogy, so it didn't feel cheap, or the sequel didn't feel like they were just putting slapping a sequel together because the first one was so successful that they wanted to cash in again. This feels like it was all written as one movie, and someone was like, we can break this into 3 or 2, or we could break it into 2 and then we can add like the prequel in the middle.
And not only a passion project from the director, but clearly Mia Goth was really like all in on this. And
yeah, she had writing and producing credits also.
So when you have people that are that invested in it, I think that helps tremendously. So I think it is one of the more solid trilogies of horror that is out there. And I think at the end we should probably rank the movies for this trilogy after we give the scores.
Yeah, that's fine.
Agreed. I do want to dive into the ending a little bit. I didn't love the end of this movie, the big shootout at the end. I thought it was okay when the big reveal happens. It's her father. The cops are, they're going to show up soon enough. So the initial shooting, actually the first person that got shot was kind of a shocker. They just shot without even seeing a gun, as far as I know. And then it's just when everyone just throws back their cloaks and it turns into a Mad Max movie. Shootout. Yeah, it's like, oh man, I was like, this doesn't feel as scary as before. If they had all pulled out knives and then started running at them, that'd have been much scarier. Obviously, your odds are much worse. Also, actually, before we hop into the ending, I do want to go back a little bit right before the ending, when she got the plastic bag over her face. This drives me crazy. In every just poke a hole in the it's a plastic bag. Rip it open. For people to lose these battles, it's just every single time. Like you're sitting there trying to take it off. You just poop. I can breathe now. That's it.
Yeah.
Just a little poke a little hole. It's
risks
a plastic bag.
Risks breaking her nail.
That's good.
Not worth it. Okay, but on this scene, that scene with the head bouncing down the stairs with the look of terror, decapitated head with the look of terror on its face,
body parts just flopping out of the bag. Great.
That was a great scene. That was chilling, absolutely chilling. It didn't look corny. You worry sometimes about a disembodied head bouncing down the stairs being too hilarious. I worry about that all the time. I don't know what you guys.
Not a lot of joy at Dave's house. No, it was great, and she still had the fake blood, which was differentiated from the real blood, that she had on when she was in her trailer from after the movie shoot and stuff. That was such a good scene of just the body parts tumbling out. Yeah, it was not goofy at all. Well, what was goofy is a couple scenes later when they're on the Hollywood Hills sign and the police officer comes running over. She's got a crucifix sticking out of her eye. She's like, I told you I got him. And then she just tumbles down the hill. I was laughing my ass off. I'm like, all right, so you get both sides of it with one tumbling to another tumbling. The head tumbling down the stairs, horrifying, gruesome, done really well. Her just tripping and falling down the hill. You didn't have to have her roll down the hill. It turned into that scene from what was
Princess Bride?
Kung Pao Enter the Fist with the baby rolling down the hill. Like that was that scene for me. And it was just like, I was laughing my ass off right there. The crucifix in the eye would have been such a scary death with meaning to it. It's the crucifix, it's the priest, And if she just flopped over and died, did she even die? She must have died, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. She rolled down the hill, whatever. It's like then have
She
her just.
shouldn't have.
Well, she had a crucifix in her eyeball.
Well, but I mean, in terms of the plot of the story, I think this was one of my two issues with this. Is the first one is when the first cop gets shot, and the female cop's going after him. She's like, keep pressure on his chest. I think it's the one time that they don't show Maxine's character accurately based on everything we've seen. To me, it would have been her going after him. She would have been like, no, I'm going to go after this guy that tried to kill me. Like,
Right. But the cops, if you're in a situation like this, you don't just send a victim. Like you go.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying.
You say Maxine's character would have, but the cop would have been like, dude, no.
Maxine's character resisting the police's orders the entire movie, not cooperating at all of a sudden is like, what do you want me to do now? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
especially at the climax
trying...
of her sorting out this issue with her father too.
Right. But I mean, I don't know. It shows that she's also trying to save his life at that point. I don't know. It's not the worst thing to stop and try to save the guy's life. So,
and why I think the female cop should have lived is because they're like, put down the gun, Maxine, and she still kills this guy anyways. I feel like if the female cop's alive, she could have corroborated the story, right, of what actually happened, and that's why Maxine would be a star.
That's because for a second when the police were like, put the gun down, Maxine, and I thought, both cops are dead. I'm like, oh shit, this whole thing's gonna get pinned on her.
Yeah, especially when she shoots another person, you would think that the cops are gonna honestly, in that scenario, the cops are like, put the weapon down, they have a gun on her. If they see her open fire, that's when they would open fire in that scene. And I would have been fine with that. If she shoots him and then she dies at the end of that scene because that was how she went out, that's a fine ending of the movie. I knew it wasn't going to happen, but at the same time, it's like, that's probably logistically what would have happened right there.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
And I wonder if they were trying to justify it because he like puts his hand up and out, like sort of suddenly.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if they were like, wouldn't have because it looked like he was pulling a weapon or something like that. But
yeah, I mean, they're in a helicopter. She's on the ground. I mean, they clearly know that at this point that this guy, they've radioed in for backup. That's why the helicopter's there. They know who's the killer, why, who's the victim. They've been following her around for that reason. I think the case would be relatively easy to prove in court that her life was at risk. She had been shot at a bunch of times, tied to a tree, tried to get stabbed in a pool. I mean, the chaos of the scene was fun. You know what I mean? The whole movie was kind of fun. It wasn't like a scary movie to watch. You weren't scared watching it, but the way that it wrapped up, I thought the shootout was a little corny. I mean, like, it's just the optics of someone in like a priest robe, like duck behind a bush and popping up and firing off a couple shots. It's just corny to me. Like with the whole, everyone's got an Uzi thing. I don't know. It wasn't great the way that last scene folded out. It was just uncomfortable and it just didn't flow with the rest of the movie.
The random guy grabbing her in the pool too just felt a bit forced, I will say.
Yeah.
Like,
to be like, just if we're talking consistency, the whole movie was very exaggerated. The characters were exaggerated. The bad guys were cartoonish. It just felt intentional. So that scene didn't even really, at that point in the movie, that scene didn't stick out like a sore thumb, like it might have if it was, at the end of Pearl, right?
Yeah, even going back to the scene where she puts all the keys between her fingers and makes a fist and then punches the hell out of Kevin Bacon in his car.
I love that.
It was a great scene, but how did he survive? Like, I feel like he would have had a lot worse injuries than he did now. He was pretty bloody in that scene, but I mean, she's getting Wolverined in the face. Like, he should have been dead right there in the car.
Yeah, I love that.
That was a great scene too. Any kills we want to hit on before we jump into scores?
Did we hit on all of them? I think maybe.
Well, the best friend death was pretty brutal in the video store.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the optics of that one. Like the stabbing was, I don't know, the slow motion, just the hand going down was, I mean, like there were some brutal moments with the cut in the face but there's at any time in a horror movie where you get that in this day and age where you just get like the up and down motion of them just stabbing the knife. It just, I don't know, feels like you're ripping off.
It felt like they were paying homage to that.
Psycho. To Psycho, where they're bringing up the Bates Motel. I thought slicing the back of the neck was brutal. Like when have you ever seen that?
That
was pretty cool.
That was different. It was.
But I did like all the kills in this movie for the most part. I thought that was fun.
Oh, also the dead bodies that washed up. Like when they pulled those bodies, I thought those bodies looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be scientifically accurate? No, they'd probably be a little bit more bloated, but who knows how, I mean, I think they were only in the water for a little bit, but I thought those dead bodies looked amazingly like horrifying. And then when they roll them over and they got that burn mark of the pentagram on them, so cool. Yeah. I thought, yeah, overall, I mean, it's a must watch.
Visually, this movie was on point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
One of the best looking as far as cinematography and set design and the way that they incorporated all the colors and whatnot into it. It was very, it felt 1980s. It felt right where it was supposed to be.
But it still captures like today's LA as well. Like if you go downtown LA and you just the way the lighting was and everything, it was very cool. Almost felt like Ninja Turtles ish. I know that's New York, not LA, but at the same time, it's big city. It just
80s.
Yeah, it was such a cool movie to watch. It was just shot really well. So,
yep,
it's a good one.
All right, let's jump into some scores, gentlemen. Dave, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I have this one at a 4.1.
A little higher. I went 4.6 on this one. That was very enjoyable. I mean, such a strong acting performance from Mia Goth. I mean, she crushes every single one of these movies, but this one, it was really good. It was really good. It was enjoyable. It was gory. It had a pretty strong storyline. The detective movie where the detectives didn't get so involved that it turns into all about them. Like it stayed focused on her while you still had your detectives. It would have gotten corny had they done more detective stuff in it, but they were kind of just staking out outside of her apartment for most of the movie there. So I like it. I thought it was good. Thought the score was great. Cinematography was phenomenal. Lighting was great. Acting was pretty good across the board. There was a few, like I said, there was a few scenes, which is why it's not going to get a great score. Did I give it a score yet? Did I say 4.6?
You did.
Okay. Yeah. So
that is a great score.
That was like a phenomenal score.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if I had already announced it or if I was about to, but just the only thing that really dropped it down was I didn't really like Leather Glove Man as the killer for a little bit. I thought it was just not scary. And I thought some of the acting, not the main characters, but some of the other actors were pretty terrible. And there was a few scenes where I was shocked that they didn't reshoot it because the lines were delivered so corny. But overall, great movie, great way to wrap up the franchise.
4.2 for me. And I don't have much to add to that. I don't like that the father paid to watch his daughter dance in the nude. That was weird.
That was weird.
Yep.
He was a weird dude. This is He was obviously designed to be
twisted, but I think, I mean, there's also like I Am Strong Grip Man, like that was corny, but I think that scene wasn't like him trying to go there because he was
right.
Like, wow, I'd really love to see this. That was him confirming that was the line of work that she was in. I think that's what they were trying to get to in that scene.
Right. Yeah.
And he was the most cartoonish villain of all time, possibly.
Yeah, he was actually didn't love his acting performance, to be honest with you. But
no, actually he was scary. But he was like so over the top, exaggerated, just like I am, everything we're supposed to hate in today's society. Right.
Well, we never saw a moment of calmness from him to make his elevated stuff more scary. You know what I mean? Like he's just always at a 10 when he's speaking. And I think that sometimes you need to show them at like a 4 so that when they're at a 10, it is more terrifying.
I wonder if he was, who he reminded me of, that actual TV evangelist preacher there. I can't think of his name.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know. He actually looks kind of like him. Yeah.
That's
I think I know
like
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
The hell's his name?
We don't have to do that.
4.2. Well, you looked that up. Jesse, do you have a ranking of these 3 movies?
For me,
go ahead, Dave.
Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah, that's it.
That was the guy.
Oh, that's the preacher guy. Yeah, I've seen his clips. Are those? We don't have to get into religion here, but it's always interesting to watch for sure. So for me, it is Pearl is number 1, X is number 2. This one's number 3.
I agree with you. That's where I have them. However, if this and X, I don't know, this and X is like more fun, I think, these two. And then Pearl was like, I think, better acting performances, but X and MaXXXine I thought were much more fun movie experience.
They were, they were more fun, but Pearl was just objectively a better movie.
Yeah. So this is boring because I am the same exact way. I know. But I like X a lot, and I actually think it's a shame to myself that I haven't gone back and watched it again because I really did enjoy it. And watching Maxine, it's like, okay, I need to go back and watch X one more time.
Yeah, I actually wish I watched X before watching Maxine. Like rewatched it.
Yeah,
I think that would have been, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. But I just think because like those two movies fit so closely together, it could have been one movie. I just think that's more. I'd be more likely to go back and rewatch X and Maxine than I would to rewatch Pearl.
Gotcha. Well, guys, that is going to do it for our movie review of Maxine. Let us know what you thought of this movie in the comments. Give us a score. And as a bonus, as a treat to yourself and us, rank the 3 movies in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. Is it Pearl, X, and Maxine, like all 3 of us said? Or do you have it in a bit of a different order? But for myself, for Dave Wilkins and Jesse Wilkins, we'll catch you next time. Peace.